We decided to do our group project sensory evaluation on chocolate ice cream. What we were looking at for in this project was to find popular ice cream brands such as Dreyer's and compare it to lesser known alternatively processed ice creams such as the Halo Top, which is actually dairy free and contains more protein. We were looking at the chemical characteristics and how they will uh, I guess, carry over to the sensory attributes. So a little background. Ice cream is a sweet flavored frozen food containing cream or butter fat and usually eggs. That is the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition. Ice cream is made using a scraped surface heat exchanger by adding dairy, fat, sugar, and usually an emulsifier. Ice cream is affected heavily by freezing temperatures, and the ice cream crystal formation may decline the overall sensory properties of the ice cream if it is not frozen properly. If it's frozen too slow, the ice crystal formation is going to be really large. If it's frozen too fast, we might not get proper ice cream or ice crystal formation. By comparing these common attributes seen in chocolate ice cream, we can decide how processing and ingredients will affect the attributes in the final product. Next, we will look at the objective of the sensory panel. The objective is to design a sensory panel evaluation of chocolate ice cream using common attributes seen in previous research. We did our research on essentially the difference between a high sugar and a high fat content on the ice cream and overall price range. So the processing of it, like the Dreyer's slow churned, it will have less fat than the regular Dreyer's. And our hypothesis is that tasting two different ice creams from the same brand that were processed differently will have different intensities for certain attributes. The low fat and non-dairy ice cream will show very different sensory attributes compared to the classic chocolate. Next, we will look at our methods. What we used was original Dreyer's chocolate, the Dreyer's slow churned chocolate, which contained half the fat because of the way it's processed, Halo chocolate, which is dairy free, and then the Swiss light chocolate, which was low fat and just about as much fat as the Dreyer's chocolate, a few grams less actually. The attributes that we were looking at specifically are for brownness, the airness or the gas retention in the ice cream, the creaminess, graininess. Graininess would be more like an ice crystal formation if it was shipped wrong or processed or frozen wrong, then there would be ice crystal formation, which would give it the grainy characteristic. Chocolate, caramel, sweetness, and then the aftertaste. Next, we will look at the materials that we used for this sensory evaluation. What we did is we had spoons, Sharpies, ice cream scoop. We used a 3-digit randomized chart and a ballot. Each panelist was given a ruler and the ballot with the 15 centimeter line scale. Panelists were trained to read the 15 centimeter line scale, and they were trained on how to analyze each sensory attribute. We also made booths from folders so that we couldn't, cheat off each other and see what the next person was doing. A well-ventilated room so that we had no weird smells or off flavor or off aromas that would affect our sensory evaluation. And then also a kitchen for the preparation of the samples. The way we did our analysis was analysis of variance. So what this chart shows is all of our F values that we got from calculating the 15 centimeter line scales using the analysis of variance. The graph is significant because it shows sources of variation between panelists, the ice cream, and then the cross interaction variance of the panelists versus the treatment, which is this bottom row down here. When we look at panelist source of variation, we see mainly cross variation between brownness, chocolate, and caramel. Between the ice cream, we again see chocolate, or brownness, airness, and caramel. The cross interactions is where this really gets interesting because we're looking at variation between the panelists, how panelists answered stuff differently, and then how treatments were set up differently, I guess. And we have high significance at brownness and very high significance at caramel. All these values with an asterisk are significantly different. So like the panelists' significance difference is that panelists answered between each product, they answered differently from one another. For the treatments were different from one another, obviously, because they're different ice creams. And really what we're looking at down here on this bottom row is probably our most significance because it shows the variation between panelists and between the treatments. Our next analysis, or our next results came from mean separation and the least significant difference ranking. Out of all these values, we only had 3 different attributes that actually contributed to a significant difference, and that was the brownness, airiness, and the caramel. Everything else did not show any kind of significant difference. Now right here, when you look at brownness, we had the Dreyer's Original come in as the most brown, which is kind of understandable. It's the original chocolate ice cream. The least brownness, I guess, would be the Halo chocolate, and that's because it was a more protein based and a non-dairy ice cream. Really, the Halo chocolate kind of just was the outlier. It was the biggest difference. We don't see original hypothesis is that Dreyer's Original and then the Dreyer's Slow Churned would be significantly different. We see some significant difference, but they're still a little bit similar. When we look at airiness, again, the Halo chocolate shows the most intense I guess, gas retention in the product as we perceived it. And it kind of makes sense because the molecule of protein is going to be smaller than a fat molecule, and it could almost be mistaken for air bubbles. It may not have been the best sensory attribute to give to ice cream, but it definitely showed that the chemical composition of these ice creams will affect the sensory attributes. The original hypothesis that the chocolate flavor and the intensity in chocolate flavor was just completely thrown out. The Swiss Light actually was the most intense perceived chocolate flavor, and that kind of surprised me because you figure that Dreyer's Slow Churned would be more of a chocolate flavor because it just the fancy slow churned, more expensive. And this is just not the case. The whole idea that more expensive ice cream is going to taste better was kind of thrown out with the Dreyer Slow. In conclusion, the caramel flavor and the airiness mouthfeel were the main attributes that separated the Halo non-dairy from the other treatments. The brownness between treatments had a significant difference, but is it really going to affect consumer behavior? Probably not. For the mean separation, the caramel flavor, the airiness, and the brownness were the 3 that differed, but the rest were not significant. Overall, we can conclude that the content did not play a role in overall perception of the chocolate flavor. We can also conclude that particular sensory attributes, such as caramel, airiness, and brownness, are noticeable between samples of normal ice cream and specialty ice creams, like the dairy ice cream. Thank you.